Mid-60s. Drink because I'm like, spinach, bananas, and apples in my.
Was she a smoker? Is there anything in her family history? High blood pressure?
I have high blood pressure, a little bit, okay, and we have a lot of heart issues in our family.
That's a lot of stuff. Sorry, it's not good.
I took two. I'm gonna put these back. Did the same time a long time ago. No. I came. Thank you. We're going to right after that.
All right. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, February 10th special meeting of the Long Meadow School Committee. Tonight's meeting is live and being recorded. This is a hearing for our 2015 annual budget. We'll begin tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Long Meadow School Committee maintains educational policies that foster continuous improvement by challenging and supporting all children in a safe and caring learning environment, enabling them to reach their highest potential and to become productive citizens. Through effective communication and positive relationships, the Long Meadow School Committee will make informed decisions in the best interest of the students, the schools, and the Long Meadow community. Correspondence.
A memo from Mr. Donald Jarvis, Director of Occupational Education for the Lower Pioneer Valley Career and Technical Education Center, dated February 3rd, regarding the Student of the Month for January 2014. Long Meadow students recognized this month are Ashley Naglieri Langlois. I apologize if I'm wrecking the name. Early Education and Care, and Integrated Occupational Prep Frank Barberi, Landscaping Technology 1.
Great. Okay. Normally in a school committee meeting, as I know we have some visitors here tonight, we would offer this section as visitor comments, but because this is a budget hearing, we're going to begin by presenting the FY15 budget, after which we will open it up for a public hearing. Given that there are people in the room, we will try to limit comments to about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes, depending on how many there are, and after that we will respond, since this is a hearing and you've come to be heard. So at this time, I will hand it over to the superintendent, who will make her budget presentation.
Great. Thank you to everyone for coming tonight. It's nice to have people in the audience, and thank you to the administrative team for coming out again to be here to answer questions about the budget. We always develop the budget by looking at our vision and our mission. And our vision is to have students completing an education at Long Meadow Public Schools. They will be fully capable of excelling in a global community. Our mission is to prepare all levels of learners to achieve to their full potential. Thanks. Technical difficulties. Yeah, what's, nope, it's gone again. Sorry. We just need to get this back up, but I'll talk while that's set up. We're missing the little connection.
It's on.
Oh yeah, it's back. Thank you very much.
Joseph's gonna be our high school tech guy.
Yes. We wish to cultivate critical thinkers and problem solvers, develop the skills and habits of mind for lifelong learning, and to contribute to a global community and to create and maintain a safe environment. So that's everything from community service to our partnership with those in Japan to expanding the curriculum so we have problem solvers that are inventors and able to step out into the workforce fully prepared to take on jobs in this new economy. Our core values are excel in learning, succeed in life, enrich our community. 95% of our students go on to colleges from last year's class. We see success in life. We know that many residents in Long Meadow return to this community. They actually grow up here, go off and spend their 20s or 30s elsewhere and come back to raise their families. We know from the graduates that we have success with CEOs, musicians, teachers, doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, scientists, and more. We also value enriching our community, whether it's community service like the spaghetti dinner last week for a teacher whose house burnt down, volunteering to help tutor students as the National Honor Society does, peer tutoring, or helping out in any way we can. We value those ideals and try to instill them in our students to give back. We also like to improve as a learning organization. We're undergoing a literacy initiative right now. Teachers are being trained in the elementary and middle schools in readers' workshop, in writers' workshop. This is a new type of teaching where students' work is individualized. We're meeting them at their level of learning. They learn skills in small groups with students who have the same skill level as they do, and they also have individual books that are suited to what their grade level, to what their level is in reading. We have response to intervention. This is a program where teams of teachers get together to assess how students are doing. With the response to intervention, the very first place to respond to a child who's having difficulty is in the classroom. The second place is called Tier 2, and that's when children are taken outside the classroom and given support for what they need. The third tier is special education, and we know that we've been focusing on trying to reduce the number of students in special education by picking them up early in Tiers 1 and 2. We have teams that are in place, and we're bringing on literacy coaches that are going to be spearheading these teams at the school to make sure that we're catching children early so they're not falling between the cracks as they move up through the grades. We do know with the MCAS scores that one of our struggles has been open response. All the principals are working with their staff right now to make sure that students are practicing and know exactly what they have to do for open response questions in terms of making sure that the MCAS likes lengthy answers. They want 5 details, a topic sentence, a summary sentence, so we're teaching the children that. We value STEM. We want students going out into the STEM areas, science, technology, engineering, and math. We know those are the critical job areas of the future, and preparing kids to be able to enter those careers is certainly important to this generation. We'll talk about the Common Core standards in a few minutes in a little bit more detail, but they're national standards. They're very close to what Massachusetts standards are. And on top of that, they set higher expectations. We have many students in kindergarten that come in reading. We have students that are working well above grade level in Long Meadow all through various grade levels. And the Common Core standards is really reaching out to those students to make sure they're being challenged. We're adding more assessment to find out how students are doing during the year. The first assessment we added last year was BASS, Benchmark Assessment System for the students in K through 5. This year we're adding AIMSweb, which is an assessment program that goes from K to 8. It gives us information on fluency and comprehension for students. We'll also be able to use it for math. We continue our technology implementation. We're absolutely thrilled with the progress that we've made over the past 4 years. Kudos to Kevin Waranda for looking ahead and seeing that what needs we had with broadband, setting up our own broadband that's cost effective, as well as giving us good advice on what tools teachers need in order to prepare students to integrate technology into the curriculum. We also have the educator evaluation system. This is a new system where we will be supervising teachers and administrators with a far more rigorous rubric and giving far more detailed feedback on their performance. We're using much more data. We need to know what students are learning and how they're learning it, and so data analysis is something that we're talking about and working on all the time. What are students learning? Very important question, and that's our curriculum review cycle. We develop curriculum. From the curriculum, the teachers develop lesson plans. They develop all kinds of tools, materials we purchase, and then it goes to the intervention. Did the students learn what we expected them to? Did they master the curriculum that was being taught? And that's where assessment comes in. We're using far more assessment than we ever did. Education for a long time was summative assessment. At the end, we gave a test and that was it. That was your grade. Now we're looking for assessment before students start learning, in the middle of a lesson or a unit, how are they doing, and at the end to make sure there's mastery. One of the things we've really focused on is a curriculum review cycle so that we're continually improving curriculum across the board. This is our chart to show us what areas are focused upon and what are the areas that we're working on. This year we have reviews in PE, social studies, literacy, math, and there's one more, special education is going to start. So we're looking at reviews there to see how we're doing in those areas. Along with the curriculum review comes recommendations for materials. We buy new books at that time. For example, if it's high school science and they need new microscopes, things like that, that's all built into the review cycle as well. There have been a lot of questions recently about the Common Core. The Common Core provides a consistent, clear understanding of what students are expected to learn. It gives us far more detail than curriculum templates used to in the past. It gives us specifics so that teachers know what kids need to master. It allows teachers and parents to provide needed instruction and support. You'll know what your children have mastered and what they have not mastered. It's designed to be robust and relevant to college and career readiness. It includes ELA and math standards as well as content area literacy standards. Thus far, it's been adopted by 45 states, the District of Columbia, and 4 territories. What's different? It's more complex. It gives more complex text for students to read, and it uses far more academic language. So the students' vocabulary is extremely important, as well as their ability to read and decode and comprehend various material. It's also about evidence. The standards emphasize reading and writing grounded in evidence from both informational and literary text. In knowledge, the standards require building knowledge through content-rich nonfiction. And you'll be seeing a lot of that. We're going to have far more nonfiction reading going on in the elementary as well as the middle school and high school. A lot of the testing that you see coming from not only the MCAS, but the new test, the PARCC, will be in the genre of nonfiction. So it's important that our students are exposed to that material, primary sources, et cetera, so they're prepared to excel with the testing, as well as in life. Some of our technological advances, we have a fast, high-capacity, cost-effective network going in any day. We are dissolving our partnership with Verizon, which cost us about $10,000 a month. And Kevin has come up with a plan for a broadband system that's far more cost-effective, less costly, and it will give us far more power than we have now. The good news is the technology is being used at a high pace. The bad news is it's so slow right now because there are so many demands on the current system that we have. So that should be finished in 2 weeks. Wireless network expansion's been done in all the buildings. There's new firewall and content filtering systems, upgrades to communication systems, multimedia presentation equipment, computing devices, Google accounts for students. We will be introducing the one-to-one computing pilot at the high school once the broadband is in place. We should be doing that in the next month or two, where all students will be bringing their own computer, or we'll be supplying a device for them to use in class. We've adopted the new acceptable use policy and social media policies. We also have Edwin, Inform, and AIMSweb data tools. Edwin and Inform are tools that the administration uses in order to disaggregate data. We can take data that's not only, for example, the BAS and the AIMSweb we talked about, but it can integrate it with MCAS. We can look at teacher performance, student performance, and more. We also believe in cultivating community connections. This is very important. With the opening of the new high school, we tried to make it a community celebration. We had the dedication ceremony. We invited senior citizens for a concert and luncheon. We opened up the building for a variety of tours. We had a community dinner for the neighbors to thank them for putting up with the construction. And our next project is to form adult education classes. We're calling it lifelong learning. We're going to offer classes after school and in the evening. The goal is particularly to invite the senior citizens into the building, but we're going to open it up to the entire community and expand this program. It's our way of saying thank you to the community for the building. So this is what drives the budget process. We have strategic plan that we look at. We're still following those goals. We will analyze student learning. We're improving as an organization. We're integrating technology, promoting digital citizenship, cultivating community connections, and demonstrating fiscal responsibilities. Those are directly from our strategic plan. So in terms of student achievement, these are what our priorities are. Continue to address literacy and mathematical skills, address the Common Core curriculum standards, provide staff development so that our teachers are ready to teach to the Common Core, provide necessary curriculum and materials, provide technology and broadband, use data to monitor student growth, and differentiate curriculum. How do we do? This is Long Meadow High School SAT outcomes. If you take a look at how Long Meadow High School compares to other districts, we fare very, very well. If you look, the blue is Long Meadow High School, the red is the Massachusetts combination, and green is national. So we're far above the state and the national on critical reading, writing, and math. Some of the facts that are critical about the SAT: 40% of the Long Meadow High School students scored in the 600 to 800 range on critical reading. 39% scored in the 600 to 800 range on writing. 45% of the students scored in 600 to 800 range on math. And a total of 478 AP exams taken in 2013, signaling a 7-year high. 87.5 had scores of 3+ with as compared to only 72.6% statewide. When we have been honored by Newsweek magazine and other places that select us as one of the top 100 high schools in the country, this is why. They look at the AP courses, the number we offer, they take a look at how our students score, and they look at information like this, as well as the community. So it's extremely important, this data that we're looking at, that we maintain this path of excellence that we're on, and we're sure that we will. But the high school is really our flagship. It's extremely important, but this is what publicly goes out that people look at. This is from the MCAS, and where we want to be is over to the upper right-hand side. It says higher growth, higher achievement, and this growth model shows how much we're growing. Our one concern is grade 4. That's the dark blue dot that's down underneath the X. The X is the state average. But if you take a look at the rest, they're all up in the higher growth, the higher achievement area. But it's part of the problem with a model like this. If you see the top green, the very, very top, that's grade 10. The problem with grade 10 is they had so many students that were at the top, 99%, 100%, they can't go any higher, so they can't move into the quadrant that we want them in. So our students are doing exceptionally well, and we're pleased with the results. We are focusing on grade 4 to see what's happening there. We've put in more support there in terms of literacy coaches. We're looking at assessment, the BAS, and other things to see how come our students are not performing the way we would like at that grade level. Okay. Here are some of the charts. This is ELA. The gray line is the state trend. So it's important to see whether or not you're following the state trend, because if everybody in the state's dipping, it means they changed the test and it's a little bit more challenging. If we're going up, for example, in this one, and the state's going down, then the students did well. We'd still like to see our students in grade 3 move up into the high 80s, low 90s in terms of mastery. Our goal is to have 80% proficient. They're almost there, but it would be even nicer to move up to the 90s. Grade 4 took a more substantial dip than the state did, so again, that's an area that we're looking at with a lot of questions and a lot of support to see what we can do to change instruction and to help the students perform at a higher level. Grade 5 had a great year. They're above the 80% mark in terms of students being proficient or advanced. Grade 6, somewhat. Grade 6, if you take a look, they're up near the 90% mark. That's hard to maintain, to have 90% of your kids proficient or advanced. 20% of our students are special education. So when you're talking 90%, it means that even 10% of our special ed kids did well at that grade level. But you can see that their scores are relatively strong. Again, grade 7, you have them up around the 90% mark in terms of proficiency and being advanced. Again, they have an upward trend while the state remained flat. Grade 8, they were up near 100%, so they've been on a downward trend for a couple of years, but they're still, they're up, I think, at 93, 94%, so that's hard to maintain those scores. But we're very pleased with anything that certainly gets up into the 90s. Grade 10, this is again absolutely extraordinary work. By the time our students get to grade 10, we're looking at 100% of our students being proficient or advanced. All of our special education students passed the test. In terms of all of our students that are not special ed also did extremely well. The high school continues to give very strong performances across the board. When we looked at some of the new testing we're putting in Ames Web, and we took a look at reading to see how proficient students were, we talked about that middle, that 32% in yellow. Those are the students who are not yet proficient that need that Tier 2 support. And if you take a look, we have the special education, I can never read that, 10%. So we have 10% special, that would be special ed, 32% that need support, and 58% that are proficient. With this number at the elementary school, we focused on reading coaches because we have a significant number of kids that are not reading nonfiction and not comprehending at the rate we would like to see them do that. So that's one of the additions to the budget, is to address this gap in achievement. Same thing with grade 6. You're going to see that the grade 6 students at both Williams and Glenbrook, 26% of the students have not yet mastered the skills that they need. And people might say, well, how can you have 26% in middle school not reading yet? It's a different type of reading. It's textbooks, it's informational, it's nonfiction. They're asked to embrace large amounts of information, and they're supposed to be able to comprehend it, break it down, and also learn the vocabulary. So that's the type of reading that we need to teach them. We've put in literacy specialists. The literacy specialists will go in and do interventions. Our goal is to get them help with the interventionist, and then get them back to class with the skills so that they don't need those services ongoing. In order to build the program that we wanted to, we actually had some reductions. The town asked us to come in with a budget that was less than what they had originally projected we could have. In order to do that, we needed to cut some money because there's a $400,000 gap in town in order to come with a budget that's balanced. Thank you. A balanced budget. Okay. So in order to do that, we had to think about what the kids needed, build in the structure in the programs and restructure, and then take out the programs, the things that we thought we could maybe do without. While we hated to make any of these cuts, these are the cuts we made in order to build a reasonable budget. We're cutting 4 resource room assistants, 1 educational assistant, 1 academic tutor, 2 grade 6 teachers, and we think we can do that because the enrollment is dropping, and tuitions. We've been building in-house special education programs, and we're seeing the benefits right now. We're able to reduce out-of-district tuition substantially. In the restructuring, these are the positions that we think we need in order to help all the children learn. We need certified special education teachers because at the elementary level, the kids are not excelling in special education. There were 2 teachers that were covering 6 grade levels. They were not able to get to all the children. We've had meetings with parents. We had a SEAL forum, and in terms of looking at the data, talking to the principals, as well as what parents were telling us, it's clear that we need more support in that area at the elementary schools. We showed you the data on middle school literacy interventionists. The middle school principals have been asking for that support, and we're going to give it to them to make sure students can read at those higher levels. We're putting a reading tutor in center school because they had less reading staff than the other schools. We're putting a literacy coach at each building. There had been 1.5, so we're adding positions so that each school will have a full-time literacy coach. We are putting some support in for full-day kindergarten. We're picking up some of the cost for that, as well as we've also put in fees. We also added .1 instrumental music at Blueberry because the class size in some of those classes, the instrumental's up to about 40 students. And then we're adding special education programs. We're building them at the high school for students that normally go out of district so that we can keep them in their neighborhood schools and also make a more cost-effective program. So the literacy coach will work with RTI teams, monitor intervention plans, collect and report that data to the RTI teams, model instruction for teachers, and show us intervention and response to data in every classroom. It allows for a full-time coach at each school. The three will provide special educators Tier 3 interventions. The Tier 3 is for special education. It will allow dynamic service provision of the triple dose, which means students will get services 3 times a day in order to try and keep pace with their peers. We're also redoing the schedules at both the middle school and the elementary schools. We're restructuring so that we have time to get to students so that we can put in time to have Tier 2 interventions as well as Tier 3. So the academic tutor, this is what is associated cost-wise to each of these positions. Academic tutor, $31,500. Special education district program, $80,000. Full-day kindergarten, we put in $124,507 to support the program. And then we are also adding 2 FTE literacy interventionists for the middle school. And the district program, $80,000. One of our goals is always to demonstrate fiscal responsibility. Again, in being asked to work closely with the town to come forward with a balanced budget, that's what our intention was in bringing forward this budget. The total proposed budget is $34,691,645.42. The increase from the FY14 budget is $447,208.83. This is just where some of the money comes from. The general fund is what the town gives us. Grants come from the state or the federal government, and special revenues come from various other sources. There are other reductions beyond what I named in the list I showed you, but this is a list of everything that we reduced. So there was a reduction of $1,414,408 from the budget. It went from everything from tuitions to electricity to moving things out of school choice and leaving room in the budget. Taking it out of school choice, we didn't need it out of the regular budget. School choice is money that we use for one-time purchases, or we use it for curriculum. That's what that money is designated for. These are the additions. Some of them we had to do. For example, we have a legal settlement for $47,500, and we have labor negotiations because we're entering our contractual negotiations next year. A large part of our budget was driven by cost of living increases. Almost $800,000 alone came from cost of living, step increases, teacher pay raises, advancement due to education, and more. The new high school, we have $134,000 for the new high school because we're seeing an increase in energy consumption right now, and we're working to see if we can reduce that cost. The results of restructuring, we hope, will result in higher student achievement for all students. We'll have more support for special needs students at the elementary level. We'll personalize literacy for all children so they're reading at their appropriate level every day. We'll have robust data management to evaluate student growth, funding to support potential kindergarten participation, financial savings through internal special education programs. So our investments in the restructuring, the additions, $721,061. The reductions, $460,941. The total supplemental change of $260,120, and that's already noted in the numbers I showed you. The general fund budget summary. The town projected allocation to the school, we were told, was $1,021,863. So that's what we started working with the assumption that was the number and the target that we were going to get to. Again, around 800,000 of that was primarily for pay raises that we are anticipating this year and for contractual obligations. The next thing is the school department. What we did request was $831,722, and we came in $190,141 below what the town originally projected that we could have toward the budget this year. Again, we did that because there's a $400,000 deficit in town right now, and we want to balance the budget. So we're presenting a budget less than the projected allocation from the town manager. We have the proposed budget, FY15 budget. It's an increase from the FY14 budget of $447,208.83. Okay. It's important for the school committee, the administration, and I to thank all the residents. We understand what a burden it is. You pay high taxes, and we are most grateful for your continued support. The senior citizens, we know when they came into the high school, marveled at the school, but we think how selfless they are to actually vote for a new building when they're not going to benefit from it. So we do appreciate the support of all the citizens, and we say thank you.
Thank you very much, Marie. At this time, we're going to open it up to the hearing. Because we do have some people in the audience tonight, I would like to remind everyone that we are going to keep comments limited to about 2 minutes. When you approach the microphone, please state your name and your address. And remember that we will not respond at the time of your comments, but we will respond after the hearing is closed. So with that, I would open the hearing.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Jasmine. I live at 123 Englewood Road. As you well know, Longmeadow is no longer able to provide an adequate half-day kindergarten program that meets the state standards put forth by the new Common Core curriculum that you spoke about. And in order to receive an adequate kindergarten education, families must now enroll their child in full-day kindergarten and pay $3,000. This is different from the past. Residents were charged $4,100 for full-day kindergarten in previous years when the half-day and full-day classes shared the same curriculum. Residents paid $4,100 solely for a longer day with more breaks. Now those in half-day kindergarten will have a separate curriculum from their peers in full day, leading to, as Superintendent Marie Doyle stated, observable differences in their readiness for first grade compared to those children who attend the full day. They also incur an increased risk for needing extra support in first grade and possible retention, and the possibility of parents receiving a list of skills they will need to teach their children so they will be ready for first grade because the half-day program won't be able to achieve it. How is it acceptable to charge families an additional fee for the only adequate kindergarten program offered? How is it acceptable to place an extraordinarily high deposit on families due in less than 1 month's time? It became very clear when watching the school committee meetings on this issue that funding the only adequate kindergarten program you are offering is not a priority. This is not what I expected from the people who were elected to ensure our children's education remains a priority. If this had been a priority for the school committee, you would have voted for funding full-day kindergarten on January 27th. You would have included the $400,000 number in your budget that you're voting on tonight, and you would present that number to the town manager and the select board for approval, and if necessary, the residents of this town at town meeting. So please don't tell us that you all agree that you should not have to pay for full-day kindergarten, but that it can't be done, when you have not done your due diligence to even try and make that happen. And with all due respect, Mr. Clark, this is not a win-win for the child and the town, and $3,000 is not a reasonable amount to ask residents to pay for kindergarten when we are already giving you our tax money for a half-day kindergarten program that is inadequate with the new state standards. Please keep education a priority. Vote down your proposed budget this evening. Bring forth a new one that includes fully funding the full-day kindergarten program. And I do challenge the number that you're giving regarding the town having a deficit of $400,000. I mean, 400, what was the number that you gave for their deficit? Was it 400?
400,000.
Because that is not what I'm hearing from the select board. And town manager Stephen Crane has told them that he believes he will have a balanced budget. So that is not an excuse either. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Nolat? Oh,
My name is Thomas Manella. My address is 35 Blockland Drive. Starting at fiscal year 11 to 12, the rates of the school budget increases were as follows: 3.2%, 2.7%, 3.8%. The proposed budget that we heard about today is a 1.4% increase over last year. The budget, if the additional $400,000 was in it, is still the lowest budget increase in that time. That would be a 2.5% increase. The families, I think, in this room live in Long Meadow largely for the schools. Whether they do so now or they did so earlier, they came to this community for the schools. I'm not ashamed to say that I'm not really rich enough to live in Long Meadow, but I live here for the schools. It hurts to see that property tax bill each quarter, and I pay it knowing that that money goes to the school. I feel strongly, with all due respect, that terms like coming in under budget and easy negotiations should not exist in the school committee's vocabulary. I ask that you please go back to the select board, tell them that they need to fund schools at the highest possible level, and fight for every single penny that you can possibly get.
thank you. Mr. Nolat?
Mr. Chairman, my name is Jerry Nolet. I live at 724 Frank Smith Road. First of all, I want to thank the superintendent for an excellent presentation. And I marvel at this beautiful room that we're in now. And it was only 3 years ago, through visioning, and many of us were there, I think, through the visioning, that we would have a media center and calling this the meeting room. And the relationship, I think, between the superintendent, Marie Doyle, and Dave Bartlett are outstanding. And so it affords not only residents the ability to serve in this room, but also for the students in our high school. Most of it, by the way, is high-tech. LCTV, I'll make a pitch for LCTV, Mr. Chairman, is in fact that technically right now is probably equivalent to Channel 22. We spent nearly $400,000. Most of it is Comcast money, by the way. So although they are a monopoly, we ought to recognize that they are doing some good to the community. I'm disappointed, in fact, that there's only 0.2% of our registered voters here tonight, which I think is kind of a sad, because after all, we spend 70% of our budget to schools. And to think that we've got only 0.2% that are interested in our budget is, to me, disheartening. I did read in Long Meadow News, February 6th issue, there was a summary of your budget, and I was struck by the fact that in the maintenance total in the budget is approximately 5% than it was last year. And I guess my question would be that since we've got nearly $80 million worth of capital assets in the ground, which is the high school is probably equivalent to all the other schools we have in total dollars. And I wonder, what your feelings are about, first, the budget. It's called maintenance. Does that include janitorial and maintenance, or strictly maintenance, or strictly janitorial? So there are a number of questions there that I'd like to have answered. And the architectural recommendation for an asset, nearly $80 million, just so we all know that we have to maintain our buildings, that the estimate is 2 to 3% of the asset value. And we're talking then in the order of about 1.6 to $2.5 million of maintenance that should go into this building. So I'd like to have a response to that, Mr. Chairman, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as we close the hearing, Mr. Nolet, I'm happy to respond to that. Anybody else?
Hello, I'm Heather Laporte of 669 Shaker Road. My daughter is also going to be attending kindergarten in the fall, so I've been following the meetings and following the kindergarten committee and everything going on. And I first watched the meetings, with a lot of hope and excitement and thought, gee, this full-day kindergarten, it's going to be great. There's a new curriculum. The teachers were on board. Superintendent Doyle was on board, and I was kind of surprised. Last year I said I'm going to have to pay for kindergarten next year. This is just part of life. And then I started to have some new hope and optimism that the school committee would come in and take this burden off of us taxpayers. We pay our property taxes. Most of us, are two-parent working families. We have high graduate student loans. We have a lot of bills, and now we're being told if we send our kids to the half-day program, then we're going to come home with a binder that we now have to teach them on top of that. And that's just not fair to the parents. And, a lot of us parents, we'll scrape the money, we'll find it, we'll cut camps, we'll do what we have to do. But, there may be some kids out there that their parents don't do that. And that's sad that those kids are just going to miss out, and they're going to have the lesser kindergarten, and their parents might not be here to speak with them or might be embarrassed to speak for them. So I would hope that you would speak for those kids and fight for the money for them to get the all-day kindergarten, too.
Hi. Alex Mitreski, 68 Ellington Street. I have a slightly different view on the decision for the kindergarten program that is, obviously it's a hot topic tonight. My personal issue is the fact that you're only offering half-day kindergarten in 2 of the 3 school districts. I live in the Blueberry Hill district. My daughter right now is in 2nd grade in Blueberry Hill district. So with this decision, you're making my son enter the kindergarten in Center School, and then next year he will have to switch and go back to Blueberry School. So Superintendent Doyle and others who are involved in the educational process, I would like to hear your opinion how it's not an emotional or social shock to a child to switch to schools, especially in that tender age when they're entering the kindergarten, they're entering the school system in the kindergarten age. So I feel that will have sort of a repercussion. The other issue to the development of the child, the second issue is obviously the inconvenience for the parent fighting 2 car lines and school traffic at 8:30 in the morning. I ask how many of you have done that, and that would certainly be a challenge. But the most importantly is that I want my kids, I live in a Blueberry School district, I want my kids to go to Blueberry School. So why Blueberry School? So why am I being pushed out for the convenience of somebody that wants to pay that my child does not get half kindergarten in the Blueberry Hills School District? It's plain and simple. So I would like a response to that. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening. I'm Amy Appel. I live at 67 Ridge Road. I really just want to recognize, I know this was a really challenging decision to come to, and there was a lot of factors, and I feel like you considered many of them. But I, too, am a family at Blueberry Hill School, and I feel like the whole thing is challenging, having to pay tuition, half-day not being a comparable education to the full day. It's an equitable education. All of those factors are really challenging to absorb. But for me right now, the worst is also feeling that we moved here. We left a city to come here because of neighborhood schools. It was a top priority in this community. I often hear it mentioned as a school committee meetings that it's really important that kids are in their neighborhood schools. And I feel like sending my daughter half day next year forces us out of our neighborhood school. And I know Blueberry Hill is filled to capacity, but I feel that something could be worked out. And it's not fair to do it to just half-day parents who are not paying the money at this one school. I think it's very unfair, and I want to hear how you can look to remedy that. Thank you.
My name's Rachel Axtman, and it's 299 Frank Smith Road. I just want to echo what's already been presented as to my concerns with paying the $3,000 tuition for the full-day program. I, too, moved to Longmeadow to provide my children with a quality education, and the thought of not being able to offer that to my son who's entering kindergarten because of the tuition, having to think that he couldn't possibly receive what was considered best in regards to the new Common Core standards is something that is a great disappointment. We have decided to be a single-family income at this time so that I can be home raising the kids. And that's a personal decision, but I also feel as though it's something that the town should consider when asking us to take on an additional payment to give our child the best access to education. And in listening to the presentation tonight, I was struck by the test results for 4th grade. And it sort of made me wonder if that was something that was a little bit lower and the town is evaluating. Shouldn't we do all we can to support a full-day kindergarten education equally accessible to all students, not based on your income level? So I would like the town to reconsider the budget. And in addition to that, I was spending some time researching on the Mass Department of Education, and I know at the kindergarten forums it was mentioned that there would be a scaling rate for families that possibly couldn't pay the $3,000. And I've called the town business office now a couple of times, and I was told that that rate would be based on those families who qualified for free or reduced lunch. And I'd also challenge the committee to consider that paying approximately $500 for your student lunch is not comparable to paying $3,000 a year for tuition. The Massachusetts Department of Education provides a scaling fee that I would like the town to consider. And it's very clearly outlined annual incomes, number of individuals per family, and how the rate should be affected accordingly. Again, my push is that all families are provided a free full-day educational program for kindergarten, but as at least a plan B would be to consider the scaling rates to make it equally accessible.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lamise Jarvinen, and I live at 16 Pleasant View Avenue. I'm here tonight not because I have a child going into kindergarten. Actually, my children are now in 1st, 4th, and 6th grade, so I don't have an immediate vested interest. However, I am an educator. I teach at Mount Holyoke College as a cell biologist, and I also am involved in the community through various ways. I am a STEM consultant, so I work with different school districts. I also offer after-school robotic courses for your elementary and middle school. I offer high schoolers an opportunity to volunteer as another way to enrich what's going on in the classroom. So as an educator, I do have the benefit of working with these different grades and seeing the effects that good education can provide and poor education can provide. One of the reasons why we moved here as a family to Longmeadow was because of the high standards that are not only expected of the children, but also of the school committees and the teachers. And I believe that as a whole, the district and the principals do try to do a very good job, and superintendent, of providing whatever needs that the schools, the teachers, immediate needs they have. However, I think that it's quite a shame, actually, that you would have to create a situation in which people who can afford to have a quote-unquote better education are getting the better education, and those who are not, are not. So you're essentially creating an environment of haves and have-nots, which is something that I oppose with all my might. One of the things that I've been trying to do, unfortunately, with my programs, what I'm trying to do is provide grants and funds for those who cannot afford what I'm able to provide. And I've been successful in doing so in different ways. And I would expect that the school committee would take careful consideration in the message that they are sending. I think it's wrong to force a parent to make a decision, especially as a taxpayer of a high tax-paying community, to say the only way your child is going to be able to meet the Common Core standards is if A, you pay $3,000 and you have our educators provide them with the necessity, or B, you don't get my educators qualifications and you do it on your own. I think that's just simply unfair and unreasonable and quite illogic. I would like to know how you came up with a $3,000 budget per family. What's so magical about that number? Is there a way to reduce it? And quite honestly, I think you have to be equal. If you're going to charge the community, you have to charge the whole community. It has to be reasonable within their means. And I just really think it's unacceptable as an educator to ask parents to fill in for the specialties and the experience that your teachers provide. You've hired them for a reason. However, you're not giving equal access to all of the students, and that's just simply wrong. So I would like to know your logic and your rationale, both on an academic level and on a community level and on an ethical level as a community of haves and have-nots, how you can establish that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Michael Jarvin, 16 Pleasant View Avenue. I appreciated your presentation, Marie. I also appreciated the data-driven approach that you used. You showed, by my count, over 40 graphs. And a lot of those graphs dealt with special education based on test scores, assessments, which is a big part of the school program. And now, as you've mentioned, you've decided to include improvements, which will cost money, to deal with those noted deficits. And that's good thinking, that's a solid approach. What I didn't see, and I had hoped to see, since the kindergarten program seems to be a big issue and challenge at the same time, similar graphs comparing half school program to full school program. I imagine that you also take assessments for those ages as well. And I imagine that those graphs would show something similar to the deficits that you showed in grade 4, for instance. So if we're going to be using a big chunk of change to deal with those deficits noted in grade 4, why couldn't we also consider using that chunk of change for the noted deficits we both expect would exist between the half and the full day program? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Chris Burke, 148 Homestead Boulevard. I would echo what's been said in the room, so I'm not going to repeat that. One thing that I would bring up is that a lot of families are making choices with their dollars. $3,000, it may be a preschool. And our family, for example, we are between full-day kindergarten for our kindergarten-age child and preschool for our younger child. And that's a choice that we're going to have to make. And these are things that are going to come to the school district in the next couple of years. So it's not just a this year decision. If we're not getting the socialization, if we're not getting some of the learning at the earliest stage, it's going to keep coming. And it's going to be soon a deficit that we're seeing on graphs in a few years. And so as you consider this, I would not only consider the $3,000 for 1 year, but I would consider that there are a lot of families in this town who made the choice to come here. We moved here intentionally before my oldest was in kindergarten so that we could always be in this district. And I would keep in mind that as we're coming through, there are going to be families, the kids may be coming in less prepared if you make this decision tonight, which I would urge you to vote it down.
Anybody else? Okay.
Hi, my name's Marianne Dambrove, and I live at 154 Lawrence Drive. I, too, have 2 young children. One is 5 and another's 18 months. And we too left the city several years ago to come to this community. My husband grew up here due to the schools. I've done a lot of research in these schools. I was very happy to see that the early childhood education was moving in the correct direction in regards to teaching reading and writing with their creative writing their creative writing curriculum. They've adapted Lucy Calkins, which I cannot begin to applaud. I'm very fond of that. I'm also very fond of they've taken the whole language approach, which is the best best teaching practice for early childhood in teaching reading and literacy. So I'm very happy about that. However, I too have to say that I feel very strongly about the half day and the full day, and also we too have made the personal decision for me to stay home. I was an early childhood educator with I feel very extensive, wonderful education that my parents were able to give me up to graduate school and onward. And I just have to say, we moved here and we walked, we're taking our child from the Center School District and we moved to Blueberry Hill District this past summer, and we're saying, oh, this is going to be your new school next year. And she's all excited and everything, and now we're being told, we're going to have to tell her that you're not going to be going here because we want you home for half day, maybe. And a child needs to be available emotionally and socially to learn. And kindergarten is it's not just about academics. If you were aware of early childhood, you would understand the importance of socialization as well as academic, and to expect young children to go to Wolf Swamp or Center School and then make the transition after 1 year to their neighborhood school when supposedly Long Meadow is all about neighborhood schools is just, I would like to have more of an explanation on that. And these numbers here, I can honestly say are incorrect, because I know at least 5 more students that are not counted in this number of 8 that would want half-day kindergarten at Blueberry Hill, and that would make a total of 13. And I know for a fact that there has been half-day kindergarten classes that have existed of 13 kids in the past. And whether they're in a music room, I know that was a topic of discussion or not, and the music teacher has to be on a cart for a year, which I apologize for the teachers. But it's more important for children to be in their neighborhood school than for them to make a transition after 1 year. So I would like more of an explanation on that and to hear your rationale on that. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
I didn't hear any rule about coming up twice, but since you passed out this handout, I just wanted to comment on it. That survey that went out to parents, parents were under the impression that it was either going to be free or reduced and not $3,000. So these numbers are completely inaccurate as far as how many were the pre-enrollment survey. So for those who didn't see the survey, these numbers mean absolutely nothing. As far as the number of districts offering kindergarten program, these numbers are absolutely irrelevant because this is prior to the Common Core. This is prior to there being a difference between full day and half day kindergarten. So as far as this kindergarten fact sheet goes, I think it's completely irrelevant and useless. And I think it's important, if you're looking at the numbers, to know what they reflect and that they don't reflect what we're talking about here, which is the kindergarten program following the adoption of the Common Core curriculum. Thank you.
Mr. Nolet.
I guess I'm due a second also then. And obviously, I'm one of the few graybeards here in the room tonight, and I do not have children in kindergarten. But I do have 3 sons. I have 5 grandsons. I have 2 great-grandsons. All my sons, my 5 grandsons, have all gone to college, and I'm not against children nor education. I've never met anyone that was, and I never want to. But you have to recognize, I didn't come here tonight either to debate, kindergarten, but the financial aspects. So I have to congratulate the school committee for its financial wisdom. You might think that most people in Longmeadow are wealthy. That is not the case. Go to the senior center, work on Meals on Wheels. You'll find that many are working very hard to make a living, and those that are not working are on fixed incomes. Nearly 40% of the folks in Longmeadow are over 60. There is some data indicating that by the next 10 years, half of them, 50% will be over 60. 2/3 of the folks in Longmeadow do not have children in school. I wish that we could afford everybody free kindergarten, but I think that the gut decision that you made, I think, is in fact a positive in nature. It's not personal. 70% of the budget. I've asked the finance director, Paul Pasturzik, last year, what this building adds to the budget. It adds about 2% to our budget. So now we're going to have nearly 72% of our budget, of the $35 going to $37 million of the $55 million budget to schools. I think we have to be fair and balanced, and I commend your your stand on trying to finance the community as well as you can. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing nobody else, we'll close the hearing and open it up for school committee comments. Would like, sure.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out and sharing their views. This has certainly not been an easy decision for any of us. I'm co-chair of the kindergarten committee. We took an approach to researching changes in kindergarten based on the needs of the community, the fact that the inequity of parents having to enter a lottery system, not knowing whether their child would be accepted into a full-day program or not, while balancing losing a costly deposit in another program, if they wanted to secure a spot, along with changes in curriculum and with the Common Core standards, which are based off of the Massachusetts standards that we're already implementing. As a committee, we took a very methodical, research-based, logical approach to this. We've spent a lot of time doing research on this. And so it was not done lightly coming to a decision of how we could implement this. I've heard a number of you say that, well, we could just ask the town for an extra $400,000. That's all you need to provide free full-day kindergarten for everyone. That's not the case. The number would be close to $900,000 because the tuition that you are paying is paying for teacher salaries and aide salaries. So when we subtract out tuition and add in more staff to accommodate everyone at a full-day schedule, it is not simply $400,000. It is close to $900,000. That would be $900,000 in addition to the budget that was presented this evening. Also, the question was raised of why a half-day program is not being offered at all 3 schools. The committee put out a pre-enrollment survey to all parents who had kindergarten-eligible children via the census data. The information was made public through all 3 of the elementary schools, through their PTOs. It was in all 3 newspapers. It has been on Facebook. It is on the district's website. The purpose of the pre-enrollment survey was to gather information on what parents were interested in for their children for next year so that we could move forward with a decision. On that pre-enrollment survey, the question asked, I'm interested in half-day kindergarten at no charge. And the other question was, I am interested in full-day kindergarten at a charge of $2,500 to $3,000, dependent on the number of students who enrolled in the program. We can only make recommendations and proceed with the data we received from parents. We received 98 surveys from parents who have eligible children for kindergarten next year. And out of those 98 respondents, those numbers are the numbers that you see. Perhaps, some of you have said the numbers are completely inaccurate, the numbers are wrong. We're going based on the data that we received from you as parents. So, and we did say it's a non-binding agreement. The purpose was to gather information so that we could predict how many full-day sections, how many half-day sections we would need. Based on that data received from you parents, there were only 8 parents who indicated they were interested in half-day school at Blueberry Hill, 11 at Center, 10 at Wolf Swamp. Because of 2 issues, one being Blueberry Hill having the least number interested in half-day, along with the issue of overcrowding and the inequity of student distribution between the 3 elementary schools, that Blueberry Hill is the most crowded, it made the most sense that if that's where the least number of people are interested, that would be the place where we would have to shift numbers. So this wasn't done with any malintent. It was not done to disrupt community schools and neighborhood schools, because we're here because we value that. All of what we have done has been research-based and driven, has been data-driven, and we can only rely on the data that we receive from the parents who are involved. If parents chose not to respond or did not respond, I cannot control that when we were making recommendations. We made recommendations on the information that we did have.
Katie?
So as a parent and an educator, I completely sympathize with a lot of your points, and I agree. In a perfect world, it would be awesome if we could offer full-day kindergarten, but I still really firmly believe that we made the best choice for all of our students and really our entire community. Because I can't ask students in grades 1 through 12 to make sacrifices of larger class size or specials so that we can fully fund a kindergarten program. Also, the option of half-day is not there to only benefit people or only there for people who cannot afford the full-day program. We have options for financial aid, for payment plans. Please come and talk to, the superintendent and Tom to figure out ways to make this happen. The half-day program option is there for parents who really want their children, who feel that that is the best option for them. We're not trying to box anyone out or take away from any student. I understand completely the sacrifices that you make for your kids. We make them too, and I understand the financial burden that this is. But we're one small group of parents that really, to ask the entire town to make a larger sacrifice, it's just not appropriate for this case. I moved here a year and a half ago. I lived in Eastern Massachusetts for 10 years before I moved indirectly here. When I chose Longmeadow, I chose it because of the community environment that I saw when I drove around town. Loved the streets, loved the sidewalks. I loved the small schools. I went online, did my research, saw the scores. I decided this is where I was going to put my family. I came in, I had a child entering kindergarten. Of course, I came in May, which was after the lottery, so we didn't make the lottery. I was a little aggravated at that. I was fully expecting to pay for kindergarten when I moved here. Because where I lived in Eastern Mass, I would have ended up paying for kindergarten. if you live in a community like this, you want to live in a community that, if you want to live in the exact same community in another town in Massachusetts, you're going to end up paying for kindergarten. I got it. I understood it. I was just really aggravated that I couldn't get in. We made the decision to get rid of the lottery system so that everyone that came in, at least during the kindergarten enrollment, can now have a full-day kindergarten learning experience. I think that's a huge benefit to the kids in this town and to the families in this town. We reduced the fee from $4,100 to $3,000. I was talking to my girlfriend this afternoon in Topsfield. She has 2 kids going into kindergarten. She has to pay $3,000 up front for both kids. I feel like we've told people $600 deposit in 5 different increments. If you're having trouble with the deposits, come and talk to Tom, come and talk to Marie. They are more than willing to break it down into different types of increments that will make it more affordable for your family. We don't want to shut anyone out. We just want to make it an affordable solution. I feel very strongly. I look at the budget. I look at what we have to do for our kids, K through 12 in this school district. I've heard, I wasn't here during the high school rebuilding. I've heard about what went on during that. I know that we have other schools in this town that are going to need some help. We have some other issues in this school that are going to need some help. And for me to add this huge amount of money to the budget for kindergarten, I feel like it's not necessary. We're offering a very nice half-day program. We have a wonderful group of parents. We have a very good half-day program. I understand that there are differences between the half-day and the full-day program, but we have very well-educated parents that are going to spend time with their kids. They're going to do things with their kids that are going to enrich their children. The binder that Marie speaks about, it's going to be it should be viewed as a tool to assist you, because not everyone knows exactly what they should be thinking about and doing with their kids to help them. I think it would be a nice addition for a parent that has a half-day program. So I stand very firmly by our decision.
For me, this is one of the most difficult conversations because there's so much I agree with everything the parents have said. I don't think there's anybody on school committee that wouldn't support this if the money was there and if we weren't looking at trying to balance a budget in town. Early intervention's critical. Getting our kids the help they need is absolutely critical, and we all know that. Let me first say, we do not want a system of have and have-nots. I think that's one of the most disturbing things I heard, and so if you need help, come see us. That is not what this is about. See me, I'm a lot easier than Tom. If you go to Tom, he's a lot tougher. I'll give you that heads up. But see one of us, because we'll talk about that. We will look into the DESE sliding scale and see how that's different from ours. In terms of the curriculum difference, the teachers this summer are going to be asked to write curriculum. You have the Common Core standards in front of you, the math and the literacy. If you didn't, there are handouts here. The teachers will be asked in the half-day program to take an overview of all of the standards and to figure out how they can cover those during the half-day. The thing that will be missing will be the time for repetition, so that with the binders, for parents who would like to do repetition, it's going to give you the opportunity to do that. Clearly, the full day is going to have time to do the repetition. There'll be probably technology introduced there too, which we will introduce because we're using it on our half-day programs right now as well. But we will do our best to make sure that our half-day kids are as well prepared as our full day. And that's the intent behind the binder. It's not to saddle anyone down with burdens, but if we can give worksheets that support what we're doing in the half-day, I think it would help parents. But our goal is to make sure that we're doing an overview of that to make sure that things are covered. Okay?
Any other members of the school committee? See anything? No. A lot of comments to get through. This is definitely one of the more populated hearings we've had on the budget. So, just to get it out of the way, I will answer Mr. Nolet's question first about the maintenance dollars. Per charter, we are only responsible for hiring, which just the janitors and their supplies. The actual physical maintenance of the building, capital dollars, that sort of thing, is in the DPW budget, if that makes sense. So, those maintenance dollars are janitorial.
But can we imagine, though, excuse me,
Oh.
can I talk?
It's not really a back and forth.
No, I don't, I want to do that, but, you know, the $900,000 for the kindergarten, that's equivalent to a 2% override, just to put the thing in numbers.
Okay.
Now, the estimate, now, whether it goes on the town side, the DPW side, for maintenance to a school building is
Right.
beyond belief,
Right.
number one. But it's estimated that it's probably around $2 million maintenance fee for this building alone, and this comes from an architect, Mr. Frigeau, who designed and was the architect for the first high school.
Right.
So it's on pretty good ground. 2% of, of $80 million, is a lot of money.
And those dollars for the physical maintenance exist in the DPW budget.
And we've not been good with maintenance,
Exactly. So,
so
Thank
hopefully
you.
we'll do better.
Just to let you know, we're being very careful. We're doing everything from monitoring electrical systems and the fans and occupied, unoccupied. It's a far more complex building than the old school, but we've had several meetings with all of the building committee, key players to make sure that we're maximizing every energy efficiency we have
Great.
here.
Good,
And we'll
thank you.
make sure that the building kept up.
If I could make a comment on that.
Sure.
I'd like to know where Mr. Frigeau got his figure. He was on the original high school building committee, and he resigned because he didn't like the plan. He thought we could do a reno. He's been cranking out position papers in opposition to any kind of middle school work. So the man seems to have an agenda. I just wonder if he has any data to support his position.
okay. So, finally, I wanted to address the kindergarten issue because I know that's what the majority of you are here tonight for, except for the admin team in the back who didn't have a choice. Janet did a good job of summarizing the first part of what I was going to say. In past years, we know this, there was a lottery. The idea was to take another look at kindergarten. And so back in September, Superintendent Doyle approached school committee and said, I would like to form a kindergarten committee. And that kindergarten committee was made of administrators and teachers, people sitting in this room tonight, as well as school committee members. And they went out and conducted the work that Janet described. The pre-enrollment survey that Janet described, obviously you have the results in front of you. And we went through the issues at Blueberry Hill, but obviously it seems that there may be more sufficient interest out there, so, it's certainly a conversation that we could revisit.
And we did go into this knowing that the pre-enrollment survey was just that, an estimate. Since this is a new plan for the district, those numbers are very fluid and can change. And that is something that we cannot make final decisions on until we see final enrollment numbers at the deadline of kindergarten registration. Yes, those numbers will change after that date because of families who move in or out of the district, people who wait to register their children, till the summer. And yes, things can and most likely will change. What we recommended and the numbers that you see are based on the data that we received.
We went down through every single detail that we could. Part of the struggle was last year's kindergarten class. We expected 130 students, and we ended up with 185, 175? 175. So we had a huge jump in enrollment. So we're struggling with that this year because we have probably about 125 anticipated coming in. So that's why we have $50,000 in the kindergarten fund, and we have another, that other approximately 150. So the district is putting in $200,000 toward this. In
Above
terms,
what we currently put in. Above last year's allocation.
Yes, above last year's allocation. So it doesn't help when you're, I see a lot of young couples here. I know you moved here for the education, and I think that makes me feel very bad that we can't provide this, but we will do whatever we can to help you. Just come and see us, and we'll see what we can do.
I wanted to also talk about the budget in general tonight as it relates to kindergarten. Sure. You got it, Alex.
Apologize. I think one of the things that you guys had mentioned earlier was that you will not deny any parent that wants to pay for the full kindergarten. But then you also raised the issue of overcrowding in Blueberry Hill. So I'm just looking at the numbers. If you could just address that question. Right now, there's 28 for full day and 8 for half day. So I'm assuming it's going to be two classes, full day, and the half would go to center. But what would happen if, let's say, those 8 decide to go in full day, and you have another influx of 10 new students? So now you have to find room for 3 classrooms. Will you still be able to accommodate a 3rd classroom in Blueberry Hill? And if you could, then why are the kids not there for the half day and remaining in that, if there is room for 3 kindergarten classes, which I think there is today? So,
Okay, so to answer your question, with the numbers that we have right now, with 8 students being interested in half day and 28 as full day, and knowing that we have not, we had not received data from all who were sent data. In fact, Blueberry Hill, I think we're unaccounted for 14 students that we know of at this point. That is why the monies that Superintendent Doyle just said were planned as extra in case there is a need for another classroom. To answer your question, if those 8 students chose now to go to full day and more students moved into the district, as we've said in our parent forums, we are doing everything we can to keep class sizes at a 10 child to 1 adult ratio, as close to that as we can. So keeping class sizes of around 20 is our goal. So if that was the case, yes, 3 classrooms could be put into Blueberry. However, if you're asking why we can't put a half-day program there right now, to have a half-day classroom for 8 students is not fiscally responsible. Half-day classrooms, if you have the 8, the 11, and the 10, that comes up to 15 students per classroom. Fiscally, it's irresponsible to hire another half-day teacher and another aide and outfit another classroom for such low numbers. We're trying to maximize, make the most of our money that we can while being fiscally responsible.
But the 14, if you average them out the way they come out, there will be another 4 going out and another 8 or so.
Right, so we're hoping to have 1 child, or 10 children to 1 adult ratios, is what we're trying to keep at.
Again, I'm going to try to keep this as not really back and forth because we have had public comment. I realize that you want to speak in back.
I just have one question.
Sure.
My fear is that a
Come
lot
to the
of
mic.
parents.
Could you come to the mic, please? Thank you.
My apologies. My fear is that a lot of parents that are in the Blueberry Hill district are under the impression that that half day isn't an option. So they would choose full day based on they feel that they have to. Is it possible to put the question back out there to parents to say, if you would like, or it is possible to have half day, would you want half day? I understand that this may change when my son goes to school, that we're probably looking at full day, then, and that's a different situation. Because I feel that I feel that you really have tried to kind of like push parents into going to full day, and I don't feel that that's right at this point. I feel that there needs to be more time given to families, or should have been given to families, if you were going to do this.
I have to say, we've been working on it since September. We had 3 parent forums, well attended. We shared every bit of this before the final decisions were made, including it looked like a fee of $3,000. So at this point, I do not think it would be fair to reopen that. A lot of work went into this, hours and hours and hours.
But you've just stated that there's 14 children in the Blueberry Hill district that have been unaccounted for. So for some reason, the word hasn't gotten out there.
Well, all of those families were contacted by Marie's assistant and have not responded.
I was one of them. I was not contacted.
And we based it on the census data. I'm not sure if you are on census data or not.
I
So I
was-
do apologize for that.
I was. We were there from the very beginning when we moved into town.
So I do apologize for that, and I understand your frustration, but we've said with registration that the numbers, the decisions are not set in stone at this point. So if Blueberry parents wish to enroll for a half-day program, and there is, a class size of 15 at Blueberry Hill, we will certainly have to look at putting a half-day program there. But we have said that, based on the data that we've gotten back, that's how we've made the determinations.
Yeah, but let me also be clear, we have increasing class size at Blueberry and other areas, and may have to add on a classroom and another grade level. So we can't tell you any of this right now until we have all the information in front of us, so.
And out of fairness that these people responded, you said this is all based on data and research, and your recommendation to the school committee, the kindergarten committee, based on all that data, recommendation, and research and surveys, was free kindergarten, free
No.
full-day kindergarten. So I want that to be noted, because that was the recommendation of all the data, the research, and the kindergarten committee. And then it came back.
Kim?
Let me just clear that up. The recommendation coming to the school committee was for free, but when the surveys went out, we clearly stated that there would be a fee.
Yes, but based on the data, the research, the survey, everything, your recommendation to the school committee was free full
Sure.
day. I just wanted to clarify.
And I would like to take that opportunity to talk about why we chose to vote in opposition to that part of the recommendation, because I think that's what's important here. What you saw tonight was that the school committee has increased its general fund budget by $831,000 over last year. That 447 number is due to special revenues we received. We're able to make it look as though it's 447, but the town's contribution is $831,000. That's what we're asking for. You had a conversation with Stephen Crane, who said that he would like to...
I did not have a conversation with Stephen Crane.
Stephen Crane has indicated that he would like to deliver a balanced budget, which is an indication that he has communicated, which is something he's communicated with the school committee all throughout the budgeting process. And in fact, by law, well, not by law, but we do need to deliver a balanced budget. We actually need, by law, we need to balance our budget every single year. The town is only able to raise its revenues by 2.5% each year. And so that total allocation of $1.2 million that we had shown was what they believed our appropriation would be based on all of the contractual increases that we had, was in addition to the town's increases, because the town has fire department and police department, park and recreation, the council on aging, the library, and other salaries that they need to fund that have all had contractually negotiated settlements, that we were in excess back in September of $650,000. That was our shortfall. That number has come down significantly. It's now hovering around $350,000, which means that the numbers you've seen here tonight, as optimistic as they are and as great as they are for the interventions we're trying to do, will change. And they will not change for the better. They will not increase. They will go down. That is not taking into any account what the select board does when it comes to funding capital projects, road work, building maintenance. Last year, the select board increased their capital budget and actually funded a water and sewer project out of the general fund that cost $930,000. That's why we went to town meeting last year. We went to town meeting last year because they had told us we could increase our budget by $0 because of that project. Now, hopefully they employ better budgeting tactics this year and utilize some of the tools available to them. But that is a very significant issue, that this number that you saw tonight, this 831, will go down. We will have to make cuts from the budget we approve tonight or tomorrow. And that is unfortunately the reality of being stuck within the confines of Proposition 2.5. That is the reality. We need to also talk about some of the vital facts that have been missing from some of the information that people have received over the last week about full-day kindergarten. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts doesn't mandate that children attend kindergarten, but in Longmeadow we feel it very, very necessary and proper that students attend K through 12, and actually pre-K through 12 in Longmeadow. But unlike every other district in Western Massachusetts, Longmeadow is the only town that does not receive any federal or state money for full-day kindergarten, and we're not eligible due to socioeconomic factors. In fact, our neighbors in East Longmeadow, who offer full and half-day programs, still charge $2,650 per year. 73 districts across Massachusetts, and this information is on the kindergarten fact sheet you have in front of you, 73 districts across Massachusetts charge for full-day kindergarten. And of those 73, 33 charge for full-day kindergarten in addition to the federal grant money they receive for quality full-day grants. 40 of those districts across Massachusetts do not receive any grants at all, and we're one of them. Those other districts include Holliston, Easton, Littleton, Medway, Reading, and Wayland. And I had the opportunity to speak with a colleague on the Littleton School Committee today who said that they struggle year over year to try to fund full-day kindergarten, and they would love to do it just as we would. Towns like Wellesley, who we compare ourselves to continually, don't offer full-day kindergarten at all, and it's because of lack of available funding. And they're examining it again in May, correct?
There is a proposal.
There is a proposal for May.
It's going to require an override in Wellesley.
That will require
which is one of the wealthiest communities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
We set our tuition at $3,000 for full-day kindergarten, which is less than the averages of every district charging across the state. And keep in mind that the average for every single district charging across the state is $3,240. The average for districts charging with grants is $3,019, and the average cost for districts charging without grants is $3,422. So we're below those averages at this point. We receive none of that federal grant money, and next year we'll be charging 25% less than we did this year. In addition to that, we've expanded access to kindergarten, to full-day kindergarten, by eliminating the lottery, a lottery that we've heard a lot about tonight from members of the school committee who have actually been through that process. But on top of that, as we've talked about time and time again tonight, we recognize that Longmeadow is comprised of families on every end of the economic spectrum, and that includes not only school-age parents, but senior citizens as well. And so we are offering parents the ability to pay on a sliding scale, and I appreciate you bringing up the DESI model, because that is something that we are absolutely going to look at tomorrow morning. That is really great information, so thank you very much. Kindergarten committee made 4 recommendations. One was that both full-day and half-day programs be available to anyone. The other recommendation was that teachers would meet over the summer to develop curriculum. And the third recommendation was that school committee would purchase supplies for new classrooms. And the final recommendation was that we offer this program at no fee. We went with 3 out of 4 of the recommendations of the kindergarten committee. But we need to take into account the yearly struggles we have to fund the budget as it is. Because if we add $900,000 to our budget so that every student goes to full-day kindergarten, or if we add $400,000 so that the people who are currently looking at the program as it's proposed, then we are impacting grades 1 through 12. There is not the option for us to go to town meeting and get above an unbalanced budget. I mean, that's not something that we're able to do. The town on the general government side, has its own obligations it needs to fund. Now, there are definitely mechanisms in place where the town can decide how they would like to spend their money. But as far as the school committee's decisions around our budget, we need to deliver a budget that is in the best interest of students K through 12. And at this point in time, we feel very strongly, as you've heard from members tonight, that $3,000 is unfortunately the rate that we have to charge for full-day kindergarten. With that being said, I believe, and I think I speak for every single person here, that this has been a very difficult process for us. And certainly we don't want any parent or any family to feel as though we did not take their comments into consideration, because we did. We began this process in September, and we ended it on June 8th at a forum. And on June 8th, Mass Live and the Republican published an article. The title of that article was "School Committee to Set Rate for Full-Day Kindergarten at $3,000. And so it's not, this has been something that's been out there. For parents who feel as though the February 28th deadline is too soon, we get it, and we will work with parents on an individual basis to make sure that their needs are met. We don't want this to preclude anybody from participating in this program, or any student to not be able to get the education that they deserve in Longmeadow. And I think that, and I know that actually, that every single person up here cares very, very deeply about your children. That's why we do this. That's why we come to meetings every other Monday night. That's why we spend countless hours in these offices making sure that our schools function at the highest level possible. We do that because we care about your children. And so asking for $3,000 tuition is not an abdication of that concern, not by a long shot. It's what we feel is necessary for us to ensure the district functions properly. And I completely hear what everybody's saying, and I am very concerned by some of the comments we heard tonight. And over the last week, I've gotten correspondence from people regarding full-day kindergarten and taken the time to speak with many of them and try to articulate our position. And I understand that some people will never be fully okay with what we're doing here, and that, unfortunately, is just part of the reality. But the fiscal reality of the community is what we're also responsible for. We have more than one responsibility, and we need to make sure that we deliver a balanced budget to the town meeting, that it gets certified by the Department of Revenue. And that's our intention. Our intention is to work with the Select Board to deliver a balanced budget. And we know that there is still cuts that will have to be made in this budget that you saw tonight, and that is the truth. So those are my comments.
Just one.
Sure.
Someone had asked how we got the $3,000 figure. I just want to, I guess, maybe explain it, because it wasn't a number we pulled out of a hat. We actually went by the census and what we thought based on that pre-enrollment survey, and then we took the actual cost that it was going to cost us to fund the second half of the full-day program. We divided it by the actual number of people that we thought would participate in a full-day program, took into account some people that may be able to receive some aid. I think we figured in a few other things, but then we came up with a number that was actually a little bit over $3,000, and we felt very strongly in trying not to go over that $3,000 fee. I just want to make sure everyone's aware that we didn't just make up the number. It was very carefully thought out, and we came to it as
And cuts had to be made in other areas to put in for that extra teacher and aide so that didn't fall to the parents. Because we took what we had and we said, we're not going to charge anymore, we can't possibly, and built that into the budget and cut other things out to make sure that support was there in case enrollment goes up.
Right, yeah, we had to add that $124,000, because based on the people that we didn't hear from, the number of people we didn't hear from, we had just fears that there would be more classrooms that we would have to add in other locations and other teachers and aides that we would have to hire. So it wasn't a number we came to lately. And
Michael,
Janet?
one other thing. I know there's been talk about the deposit being due with registration. At the January 8th Parent Forum, it was presented, as we've said, of a tuition of $3,000 divided in 5 increments, with the deposit being due upon registration. One of the reasons for the early registration this year was in response to parent concerns that we did hear at the forums and that were brought to the kindergarten committee, is that parents would like to know sooner than later because of deposits that would need to be put down in other programs within town, Montessori, JCC, St. Mary's, if you were looking at another program. So parents asked for an earlier deadline, which is, part of the reasoning that kindergarten registration and the deposit did get moved up. With the research that we've done in like districts, they've commented on Wellesley, those parents won't know an answer whether full-day kindergarten is even an option until May 20th. I don't know how their community works with aftercare or other half-day programs and how accessible that is, or when they need to put deposits down, but those parents won't know until the end of May. Other like districts require much higher deposits than we do, who charge tuition. So while it's understandable, and I echo what's been said by all of us before, is that if there are concerns, if it is difficult to email or to call Tom or Marie, you don't have to come in. We'd like to handle things, very discreetly, very sensitively to your needs. We're not trying to make it inaccessible for anyone. But the reality is, this information has been put out there prior to less than a month's notice.
On a positive note, I do want to make note that I've gotten 3 phone calls in the last 4 days from my friends within the community actually thanking me for lowering the fee and making it into 5 different payments. So I just want to make sure while we do have a group of people here that are unhappy with what's going on, there are still people out there that are happy with what the decision that's been made. Even in January, after we made that decision at the forum, I was at my daughter's gymnastics class. A parent came up to me and said, "Thank you for making it affordable, and now I don't have to wait to know if she's going to get into the program." So I just want to make people aware that there's not there's positive sides of this. I've heard positive as well.
So if there's no other school committee comments, at this point, I would ask if the committee would like to take a vote on the FY15 budget as presented. Or if we would like to meet again tomorrow. Okay, make a motion.
Motion.
I move we accept the school department budget as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the vote? All those in favor? The motion carries. Approval of warrants.
I move the school committee approve the warrant batch number 2200 of the general operating fund fiscal year 2014, dated 14 February 2014, in the amount of $394,201.20.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries. You guys voting? Yes. Motion carries. 6-0.
Okay. I move the school committee approve the warrant batch number 2201 of the school lunch fund fiscal year 2014, dated 14 February 2014, in the amount of $59,936.96.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? The motion carries.
I move the school committee approve the warrant batch number 2202 of the special revenues and grant funds dated 14 February 2014 in the amount of $3,030.20.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor? The motion carries. Any, is that all it? Is that it for the warrants? Okay.
3 of them.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any, no further discussion. All those in favor?
All right.
Thank you. Did I miss anything? Okay, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and we'll be back on the 23rd. No.
24th.
24th. Back on the 24th.